Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things. So one, B1 Maokai. So B1 Maokai is good for the series. In general, I do not think that it is good. Because Maokai doesn't have any flex potency. He's not going to go top lane. He's not going to go support. He's going to go jungle. He's only going to be able to do the utility Maokai. He doesn't have any AP offerings inside of the jungle. So I think in that regard, Maokai as a general champion is not super great. Wait, oh my god. Wait. No, okay. All right, we're good. Where's my epic pen? Okay. All right. So, so we have Maokai, and then enemy responds R1, R2, Scion, Wukong. So these are two champions that both have two modes. They either engage, right, together, or they can disengage. Cyclone can be used defensively if the enemy team is engaging onto them. Both of these champions are basically, I mean, they're tank bruiser, but they both do still lose to the same theme, which is protect. Protect is really, really, really good against them. So when you end up seeing this and you have Maokai, you have a really good terrain control champion, and you have a really beefy champion. So you could end up pivoting into that theme, that archetype, right? Because that is exactly what Scion and Wukong are both weak to. They both share a weakness to the same theme. Even though Wukong and Scion are not the same exact type, they share a weakness to it. This would be like in Pokemon or something, okay? You have a flying type, and then you have a dragon type. They're both weak to ice, okay? So even though they're seen together here, and they're able to do some of the same things, they're both weak to the same type of team composition, okay? Which is the best type of team composition against both these champions is just protect. So in this regard, you should draft protect. Now, what does C9 do? They draft Zeri, which is a scaling champion. It can be used in a protect team composition, but then they draft Jace. Now, is Zeri the best protect champion? No, she's not the best protect champion. There are definitely better protect champions than Zeri. Obviously, Aphelios is better versus pure hard-on engage than Zeri is going to be. Aphelios is still probably the best stand your ground AD carry, up there with Kog'Maw. If Aphelios has the right guns, then he's probably better than Kog'Maw. If not, I mean, Kog'Maw does have some other options. Kog'Maw and Aphelios also, in their own way, do have some differences, but those are the two best stand your ground AD carries. Now, another type of theme that is good against Wukong and against Scion is like an evasion type team composition. So evasion would be like champions that have a lot of terrain control and champions that have a lot of ways to reposition. So like Ezreal would be another champion that could be very good against Wukong and against Scion. Ezreal, obviously, because he can be very tanky and he can be very evasive. So we're looking for evasiveness or we're looking for protect. Now, Zeri is in the protect theme, right? She is there, but Zeri doesn't know what she's going to go up against yet. Now, because Scion and Wukong also have the theme where they can be disengagers, Zeri has the option to get outranged. The possibility to get outranged. Now, if Zeri gets outranged by another protect champion that is greater than her, then it's going to be a problem. Now, fortunately for CLG, that is actually Jinx. If Jinx goes long enough, Jinx will overthrow Zeri in terms of she has longer range, she has more DPS output, and Zeri's utility generally isn't going to matter. Now, the Jace is where the real problem begins. Jace is not evasiveness. Jace is not... Jace can have terrain control because he threatens damage, but obviously he's not threatening damage here. Jace is not a part of the Protect school of thought. Jace is a poke champion. Now, they have terrain control with the Scion, but the other thing about this is that the Scion can be flexed. Scion can go mid, he can go top lane, Jace can go mid, can go top lane, etc. And Scion is very good against Jace. Wukong is very good against Jace as well. Jace is bad against the R1 and the R2 that the opponents have picked. Doesn't matter about comfort. I fucking hate that word, man. It's synonymous with cancer when I hear it when we're talking about drafts. Doesn't matter about comfort or anything like that, because realistically, there's probably other champions that you can just play that you're comfortable on that offer you a lot more upside. It also doesn't matter if you're comfortable playing a certain thing if it just means that you're going to get fucking ass blasted, okay? if you take a, if you're playing Hearthstone, you're playing Magic, you're playing Pokemon, you're doing something like that. It doesn't matter that you're really comfortable on playing something if it means that you have a higher likelihood to lose. One analogy that I could give with like myself, right, is the Pro Tour qualifier that I ended up winning for Magic. My entire Magic experience was only playing control decks, and I have the most comfort with blue-white control and black-blue control, Esper control, which is blue-black-white, etc., right? And it's sort of like what I was known for in the meta scene of Korea, is that I only play control decks. And yet the deck that I won the qualifier with was green-white tokens, which was a deck that I only practiced for 1 week leading up to the tournament. And I had no prior experience on, and I had no prior experience even seeing it. But it was a meta decision because it would give me the highest chance to win against the field. And even though I'm less experienced on green-white token, the matchup edge that I get gives me so much forgiveness. And as long as I put a little bit of practice into it, would give me a higher chance to win than playing blue-white control or blue-black control, or something like that, just because the meta edge that you end up, getting. So anyways, R3, Jinx. At this point in the draft, CLG are ahead. The reason that they're ahead is because their champions have more options. Scion and Wukong can be used as disengage tools. Scion and Wukong can be used as tanks and bruisers. Scion and Wukong can both be used to give Jinx to get excited in a fight. There's a lot more ways to guarantee that Jinx gets to the mid and late game and comes online and overthrows Zeri than what C9 have available. So CLG at this point in the draft, it's a lot easier to play out the remainder of the draft because there's a limited range of options that C9 have available on champion picks that is not totally inconsistent with what they've picked thus far, but that can also just sort of come in blind. The other thing is that now the matchup has been decided. This will be a Zeri versus a Jinx game. There's no other themes present in this match. There's nothing else that is really standing out at this point in time, and we have two hyper carry champions that are present in the game. Now, what is the best way that CLG can end up guaranteeing that they stay ahead in the draft? Well, the first thing is to not ban two champions that Jinx doesn't care about. Jinx doesn't care about Syndra. And if you care about Syndra or something, that would mean the Syndra comes in blind. You get the matchup for Scion up in top lane. That means that you get counterpick on Syndra. You don't care about Syndra in the modern meta. Syndra also hates playing against Wukong and against Scion until she ends up getting the thing where she can execute Scion when she gets her passive high enough. But even then, that doesn't necessarily mean that she's good against Scion. The other thing is that Syndra will get countered. So Syndra doesn't want to actually come in blind here because currently the enemy team is outranged. They're outranging in the sense that Jace cannot be a one-man army to outpoke any of these champions. Even with Syndra, without knowing what Syndra's counterpick is yet, you can't know whether or not Jace and Syndra can control the skies enough to, guarantee that Syndra will have enough comfort in the game and that they can overthrow Jinx at like 3 items, like 28, 27 minutes in game or something like that. So because of these unknown factors, I think the Syndra pick is really bad, or I think the Syndra ban is bad. The Cho'Gath does have some simplicity with the Maokai, because obviously twisting advance into Cho'Gath rupture, and then it would be Jace mid lane. Now, the Jace mid lane thing, again, you have Scion that's able to max it. So if they pick Cho'Gath, you can then just pick a champion that is able to go against Jace and Cho'Gath, and it's fine. You just end up having to do something early on, like level 1 with Scion, in order to get a good matchup. And it's not really in the opponent's control to be able to do anything against that. So I think both of these two bans don't make sense. Now, does the Lysandra make sense or does the Thresh make sense? The Thresh also does not make sense because it shows that they're not aware that realistically what CLG can end up doing on R4 is just picking like Orianna, or they can just pick Asol on R4. Now, maybe they can't pick Asol if the level of competition is actually higher. Maybe they can't pick Asol, but in North America, 1, Asol is never getting punished. 2, the games are not clean enough. They're not high level enough, etc. Not going to be able to do anything against Asol. He will just scale, and then now, I mean, again, it's another champion that these 3 champions hate playing against. So the Thresh doesn't really make any sense because Jinx will always just get counterpick, and Jinx doesn't care about the Thresh because what is Thresh blocking right now? Why are you banning Thresh when you have Jace, who theme answers the Thresh? Why are you also banning Thresh if you're thinking that maybe they're going to pick Thresh on R4, which would then mean that you have support counterpick, which means that you can just invalidate the Thresh by your B4, B5. If you think that Thresh is actually going to be picked on R5, it would mean that you drafted in a really poor manner, because you can pick in a way that Thresh just can't be picked. So even the ban by Thresh doesn't make any sense, because it shows that C9 are not accounting for the range options that CLG has remaining in their available champion pools. Now, Aurelion Sol on R4 or Orianna on R4 is probably just best in this spot, because then Orianna doesn't really care what she goes up against. And then, you know, what will C9 end up doing at that point? Perhaps they put the Jace in mid lane and they just try to control mid lane enough with Jace, and they go like Gwen in top lane or something like that. Let's see how we're doing on time, by the way. Oh, let's see how we're doing on time, sorry. Okay, we're almost done. All right. So now in the actual game here, what they do is they do Lulu. And this is a blunder. And the reason that this is a blunder, hold on, let me mute this. Okay. The reason that the Lulu is a blunder is because you don't have to pick the Lulu here. Getting the counter pick in mid lane is not really that valuable, because you already are presented with several mid lane options that would just be able to sort of be versus all in mid lane. And then you want to guarantee that the build around, okay? So in trading card games, they would call it the build around card. It's the card that you build your entire deck around, right? So once upon a time, like blue-white was built around like, you know, Nexus of Fate, right? Like a lot of people might remember this card. If you played Nexus of Fate, you know, you probably ripped many cards, slammed many tables against Nexus of Fate. Nexus of Fate was the build-around card. The entire deck was centered around making Nexus of Fate work. You know, in Hearthstone, you know, once upon a time, right? There was like Jiraxis, right? So this is like a blast to the past, right? Jiraxis was one of the build-around cards in Hearthstone. You know, Freeze Mage was another thing that had build-around cards inside of it, right? There's plenty of decks that have these build-around cards, right? Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. You know, this was a build-around card for sure. You know, Jace the Mind Sculptor. You know, Jace the Mind Sculptor, another build-around card, right? You make your entire deck centered around this card. I think right now, Venerated Rot Priest, right? This is another build-around card right now in Modern that just ended up coming out. Your entire deck is built around the card. It's designed to be made for this card. Now, in the draft, right now, who is the build-around? The build-around on C9 side is Zeri. The build-around on CLG side right now is Jinx. Why do you compromise the draft by hurting Jinx by picking the support blind? Doesn't make any sense. So here's what you can end up doing. What you can end up doing here is you can just go Asol on R4. Or you go Orianna. You go Orianna, Asol, R4. Okay? Maybe what they end up doing anyway is they do the same thing. Now, what if they go Soraka here? Well, now you get Sona. Okay, so we've successfully made our build-around better than the opponent's. Okay, now what happens if they go Lulu? What if they take Lulu for Zeri, right? One of the standard things. Now we go Soraka. Our build-around is better. We are drafting in response to the opponents, because League of Legends is not a concealed information game. The closest that you can get to a concealed information game is flex picks. People don't use this shit enough. People show you that they're not drafting in real time by doing things like B3 Jace into R1, R2 fucking Scion Wukong, which makes no sense. People show you that they don't even understand the concept of a build-around, because they don't draft in a way that shows that they're cognizant that they have a build-around champion that is currently present in the draft. My lord almighty, we're in the draft.